as APC. And that is why today you no longer hear of CPC. CPC was led in by General Muhammadu Buhari, who then became the candidate of the APC. ACN was moved in by the current president, Bola Tinubu. Nigerians crave for a new leadership at this time. And we are back to 2015 in Nigeria. We are now in 2014 because the whole process of the APC started in 2013 actually and moved to 2014. So we are right now in 2025, heading towards 2016, where the coalition will form more and become strong. But however, I think that the new coalition does have the power. It depends on the players. If 10 of them want to become president, they will lose with him. So they need to be able to do their calculation the same way it took the SPC at that time to organize the then now president, Muhammadu Buhari. Atiku contested that ticket. He lost out. And that was why after he lost out, eventually he came back to the PDP. To answer your question, yes, if they are ready. No, if they are unable to organize.
Also, like is a political analyst. In the meantime, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, has approved a final 2-year extension of its military mission in the Gambia, known as ECOMIG. The decision was reached during the 67th Ordinary Session of ECOWAS Heads of State and Government meeting held in Abuja, Nigeria. In a communique, the leaders praised ECOMIG's role in supporting the Gambia's security and defense reforms and directed the ECOWAS Commission to revise the mission's mandate to improve its effectiveness. They also commended the Gambia's ongoing commitment to its security sector reform program and called for a phased withdrawal plan and a clear exit strategy for the mission. Originally deployed in 2017 to restore order after former President Yahya Jammeh refused to leave office, ECOMIG has played a key role in stabilizing the country during its transition.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
And to some legal news now. In Guinea, lawyers have initiated a 2-week boycott of all court hearings and are withdrawing from transitional institutions. This decision was made on Monday by the Bar Association in solidarity with their colleague Mohamed Traoré, who was abducted from his home last Saturday by masked men and was later released. The lawyers have also decided to file a complaint against those responsible for the kidnapping of Traoré, a former president of the bar and a former member of the National Transitional Council. Abdullah Hassan completes the story.
While gathering before the Conakry Court of Appeal on Monday, the Guinean lawyers approved a boycott of all hearings and judicial police summons for 2 weeks. The lawyers also decided to withdraw their representatives from all transitional institutions and bodies, including the National Transitional Council (NTC). Malik Jakite is the acting president of the Guinean Bar Association.
The Bureau of Guinea lawyers have adopted the following measures in response to the serious harm done to their profession: a 2-week boycott of all judicial hearings, the immediate withdrawal of all lawyers representing the profession in the institutions and commissions, including the CNT. We intend to file complaint against the authors.
Following the General Assembly, all the lawyers converged at the Ministry of Justice to express their concerns. However, according to the spokesperson for the Guinean Bar Association, Gabriel Kamano, the Minister of Justice refused to meet with them.
The minister told us that we need to write him to receive us. Things are now clear that the Minister of Justice has contempt for the bar. We will draw the consequences. What remains clear as Minister of Justice, he needs the bar for the proper functioning of justice. So the resolutions we have taken remain in force. We will test them for 2 weeks. During these 2 weeks, we will convene a new assembly to clear the Athenian conduct.
At the moment, neither the Minister of Justice nor the government spokesperson have commented on this case, which is making headlines in the media and on social networks.
Abdullah Hassan with that details of Chenafa Ibrahim about his report from Conakry. Meanwhile, ECOWAS Commission newly elected President Julius Maada of Sierra Leone is beginning to face demands from citizen groupings across the sub-region. The most recent request comes in from the form of open letter sent to President Biya on Monday by a civil society organization in Guinea known as the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution, FNDC. In its letter, the FNDC draws President Bio's attention to the arbitrary kidnappings and forced disappearances of prominent figures in Guinean civil society, particularly Mamadou Biloba and Omar Sila, also known as Fonike Mange. The Guinean civil society organization is calling on the new ECOWAS president to intervene and ensure the safe release of the missing activists who have been reported and missing and remain untraceable. Alassane Farinta Kamara, head of the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution, speaks with WDL about this communication.
Vous savez, Monsieur Madabio est un ancien militaire qui est venu au pouvoir.
You know, Mr. Madabio is a former military man who came to power by the JUR and also has a very high credibility in his country and internationally. He has a legitimacy that allows him to act beyond the question of sovereignty between countries, to use his influence as president in the ECOWAS to ask the Guinean authorities to release Umar Sila, Fonike Mengi, Dio Loba, Habib Mawan, Sadu Nimanga, Usman Nyilwe, and many others, and especially all those who are victims of arbitrary removal. Since the removal and forced disappearance of our colleagues until now, we continue to fight and explore the possibilities that Guinean laws and the treaties that our country have signed offer us to be able to call on the decision makers at the local, sub-regional and international level so that we can get the freedom of our colleagues. We hope that President Julius Maada Bio will use his credibility and his supranational leadership to bring the Guinean leaders to free our colleagues.
National pour amener les dirigeants guinéens à libérer nos collègues.
Alassane Farinta Kamara is the head of the CSO Group FNDC in Guinea. And more bilateral issues, Mali Transitional President General Assimi Goïta met with Russian President Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin on Monday. During that meeting, the two leaders acknowledged the existing relations between Mali and Russia. Following their discussion, several agreements were signed in the areas of defense, economy, and energy. Bamako and Moscow also expressed their desire to enhance diplomatic collaboration to support one another within international organizations. Christopher Tisha report.
During their one-on-one meeting at the Kremlin, President Assimi Goïta and Vladimir Putin first recalled the good relations between Mali and Russia, while reaffirming their commitment to maintaining this momentum. In his words, General Assimi Goïta said,
I would like to salute the fraternity and cooperation of our two states. Today, we have to recognize that cooperation with Russia, especially on the security defense plan, Mali has recovered the integrity of its territory. I am convinced that this official visit will be an opportunity to strengthen our ties of cooperation.
The meeting was followed by a working session extended to the two delegations, who considered new avenues of cooperation. The two countries have thus signed several agreements in the fields of economy and energy. Bamako and Moscow are also considering strengthening their diplomacy on the international scene. Abdoulaye Diop is Malian Minister of Foreign Affairs.
This
agreement aims to consolidate the relations between the two countries and to revisit the basis on which the relations between Mali and Russian Federation are based, both on the political, diplomatic, security, and economic, as well as the commercial level. Their commitment to work together on the international level to mutually defend their interests and also counter all negative policies and narratives in the country.
Meanwhile, an agreement was also concluded in the field of atomic energy, with a view of providing a response to the energy crisis facing Mali.
A report from WDL's Bamako correspondent Ali Ujam and voiced by Christopher Atichu. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Opposition parties in Togo denounce irregularities ahead of July municipal elections, call for mass protests. In Nigeria, a new coalition known as ADA emerges to defeat APC in the 2027 elections. Lawyers in Guinea stage 2-week court boycott over recent abduction of their colleague Traoré. And still ahead in the news, West Africa Bar Association urges justice and democratic governance amid regional tensions. We do have the press review, a guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Well, don't forget you can listen to us live on wadr.org and fuller live streams on YouTube and Facebook. Now let's take you to Liberia, where the president of the West African Bar Association, Councillor Bruno Vama, has highlighted significant challenges of access to justice and democratic governance throughout the sub-region. WABA, which consists of lawyers and national law societies from the region, advocates for the rule of law, human rights and democracy in West Africa. Councillor Vama, who is also the president of the Liberia Bar Association, emphasized the need for proactive measures to tackle these urgent concerns through unified petitions and advocacy efforts. WDL's Monrovia correspondent Abraham Parker reports.
Councillor Bruno Vama emphasized the importance of respecting and adhering to the rulings of the ECOWAS Committee on the Code of Justice. Since its establishment, member states are expected to follow these protocols, which are essential for maintaining legal cohesion within the regional bloc. He warned that ignoring these decisions undermines the regional legal framework and hampers regional integration.
We are concentrated in the West African sub-region to elevate issues around access to justice, democratic consolidation. We are concerned with rulings and decisions emanating from the ECOWAS Committee Code of Justice. The member states must begin to adhere to those rulings and decisions because you all signed to the protocol in 1975.
Additionally, the president of the West African Bar Association, WABA, expressed concerns about the increasing trend of military coups in the Sahel region. He reaffirmed WABA's commitment to collaborating with affected countries to strengthen democratic institutions and uphold democratic norms. Regarding recent political issues in Ghana, including the suspension of the Chief Justice, Councillor Vama stressed the need to evaluate these actions against constitutional standards.
We are finding a way to remain engaged with those countries to see what can be done to make sure that some of the rule of issues that confront the sub-region are addressed. Doing in collaboration with member bar association because they are in those countries. There was an issue recently with the suspension of the Chief Justice in Ghana. We are quite concerned about that.
As part of its mission, the West African Bar Association works in partnership with ECOWAS and utilizes the African Charter on Human and People's Rights to promote justice, human rights, and democracy throughout the region. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
The IMF Executive Board has approved an 18-month resilience and sustainability facility for the Gambia worth $63.55 million to support climate resilience, green public finance, and energy transition efforts. In a related move, the board also completed a third review of the Gambia's extended credit facility, unlocking an immediate $16.95 million and disbursement, bringing total support under that program to over $50 million. The IMF praised the Gambia's economic progress, with GDP growth projected at 5.7% in 2025, driven by tourism, agriculture, and construction. Inflation is easing, but fiscal challenges remain, especially due to losses at state-owned enterprises like NAWEC. Now let's turn our attention to bilateral matters as King Mswati III of Eswatini embarked on a 4-day visit to Ghana today. This visit aims to strengthen diplomatic, economic and cultural ties between Ghana and the Kingdom of Eswatini. Formerly known as Swaziland, Eswatini is a landlocked country located in southern Africa. WDL's Accra correspondent Nadia Tete reports.
The Eswatini monarch, His Majesty King Mswati III, is expected to arrive in Accra on Tuesday, where he will be officially received at the Ghanaian presidency. King Mswati III will hold bilateral talks with President John Dramani Mahama and a high-level Ghanaian delegation. A memorandum of understanding is expected to be signed to formalize new areas of collaboration between the two countries. Later on Tuesday, the king will visit the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat in Accra before departing for Kumasi, where he will be hosted by the Asantehene Otumfuo Osei Tutu II. While in Kumasi, King Mswati III is scheduled to visit the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, tour the Menchia Palace Museum, and address the National House of Chiefs. A grand durbar of traditional leaders will also be held in his honor at the Menchia Palace. The visit will also feature a royal banquet on Friday evening. On Saturday, the final day of his stay, King Mswati III will join the Asantehene for a ceremony at the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, KNUST, before departing Ghana. The state visit is expected to deepen diplomatic and cultural ties between Ghana, Eswatini, and the Asante Kingdom. For WDR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
Well, this afternoon, a spotlight turns to Togo, a country in the grips of political tension and public outcry. Recent constitutional reforms have triggered a wave of protests across the nation. What began as a legal adjustment now has ignited accusations of constitutional coup, with many fearing this could cement President Faure Gnassingbé's grip on power indefinitely. There have been crackdowns and there are planned series of protests in the coming days. With the ongoing situation in the country, this has left the people in a tense state. Well, to help us make sense of what's really happening and what could this mean for democracy in Togo and the wider West African region, we've been joined by Kopep Davigat, civil society engagement expert and international affairs analyst.
This edition of Newspaper Review begins with
the situation of Togo. I mean, it's not a new kind of thing. It's something that has, evolved over time. And I think the character of the Togolese political landscape has virtually remained the same, with the same National Republican Union or something like that. The party of Faure Gnassingbé, the president, has been in control of power, absolute control of power for God knows how long. So it's a trend that has been there. But the new aspect that has been added to it is the fact that now, in a very, should I say, smart or bold move, he has moved to perpetuate himself in power as the president of the Council of Ministers, which basically has no term. And this is the position that sort of lays the foundation for the governance policies and everything for the country. That is what has changed. And I think people are just not happy with that. And of course, with the awareness about what has been happening across the world, with the openness that the internet spread and the social media and all that have imposed on societies.
Mr. Kopep,
where people...
Are you worried that Togo is of some sort following this troubling trend of democratic backsliding in West Africa?
Well, I would say yes, because, in a country where substantively now you don't have the right to elect your president. It is a group of people called the Council of Ministers that go there to select, the president. And of course, this group are all, I would say, in the pockets of the president. So there's nothing stopping him from being in power for the next 20 years or even for life, So that is not a free society. That is not a democratic society, especially in a situation whereby majority of the citizens no longer see him as a viable alternative, as a viable option for them as president. You understand? So it's tints of backsliding, even though there are elections. The elections do not even concern the president. You see the funny situation in Togo. How can a serving president be so naive as to believe that taking the power out of people's hands to elect their president will not amount to very high opposition?
Now, Skopep Davagat, civil society engagement expert and international affairs analyst. Well, let's now go straight to Monrovia as we join Ibrahim Parker for the press review.
This edition of Newspaper Review begins with the Heritage Newspaper. President Bouaka returns home from ECOWAS function, congratulates President Bio as new chair, as Speaker Kofal and others risk rearrest if a nation rising from pain to promise, as President Salif declares at United Nations Peace Building Forum. Our next stop is Front Page Africa newspaper. Seeking independent investigator. Opposition demands independent probe into alleged police misconduct, witness tampering, and mishandling of evidence in Capitol building case. Administrative halt. Government suspends chaotic compulsory registry process. Activists call for thorough review before resumption. Since the President's Executive Order 141, there has been series of complaints from citizens where they've been mandated to use their citizen ID card before accessing banking institutions and government offices. Many Liberians have complained that the executive order was not timely, owing to the fact that most of the centers created by the National Identification Registry, it would take them a week or two before they can get the ID card, and the government otherwise to suspend that process. Our next stop is the New Dawn newspaper. Hassan Fatih Kajiled briefly on libel charge. Our last stop is the Liberian investigator with these stories. Labor Ministry orders National Poll Authority to pay ex-controller $280,000 after wrongful dismissal. And Liberian woman praised after refusing $10,000 Liberian dollars in viral prank video. That does it for this Tuesday's edition of Press Review. For Liberia's capital, Monrovia, thanks so kindly for listening.
Many thanks, Ibrahim Parker. And in sport news, Al Ahly and Porto played out a thrilling 4 draw in their final Club World Cup group stage match on Monday, but both teams were eliminated after Inter Miami and Palmeiras drew 2-2 to advance from Group A. Despite the excitement, the result wasn't enough to keep either side in the tournament, as a draw in Miami sealed Inter and Palmeiras places in the round of 16. And that's it on this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Falelu Soul for the technical support. To connect with us on all of our social media platforms, X, Instagram, at WDR News. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Baga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi, Ghana, we say a big thank you. Remember, West Africa Democracy